I'm sorry. I should not have probably done that.
That's okay. Guys, we're good evening and welcome to TC Global's webinar series on COVID-19 and its impact on global education and industry. We're going to start shortly. The broadcast has started, so you need to give us about 5 minutes to just iron out some tech stuff, and then we'll get started. Panelists, if you'd like to go offline for now, once Chirag's ready to start, and then we'll start from there. Jas, if you can just confirm that you're here, then I'll get started. We've got about 5 minutes, but we can give them basic instructions now. Sorry, guys, just give us 5 minutes. We're just about to start. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to TC Global's webinar series on COVID-19 and its impact on global ed and industry. Today's is going to be the 4th webinar in the series, and it's going to be about career possibilities and realities post-COVID-19. Before we begin, some quick pointers. We know some of you have sent questions in earlier about your concerns, and thank you for that. It's been very useful. There is also a question panel and a chat panel on your screen. Depending on what device you're using, it will be either on your right-hand corner or in the middle of your screen. Please use these to ask us questions throughout this presentation and webinar. We have an amazing panel and amazing presenters who are here just to help answer your questions. We will also be conducting some polls to get your feedback during the session. All you need to do is click on the option that suits you best on the screen. You don't need to worry about the rest. With that being said, I'd like to introduce my colleague Jas from our international relations team at TC Global. She will be introducing our panelists as well as our presenters today.
Thank you, Rahimi. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. So as Rahini said, we've got our webinar today, which is focusing on career possibilities and realities post-COVID-19, which is very apt for the times we're living in. So I'll start by introducing our panel and our presenters. So we have Chirag Mittal, if he gives us a wave, who is our head of strategy and human resource management at TC Global. He's also an alumnus of IIMA, and he's an extremely resilient and persevering person in terms of his personal activities outside of work. And he's perfectly suited to be able to discuss this with you today. We also have Professor Chris, looking lovely in a blazer, who's from SP Jain, and he is the CEO and head of their Dubai campus, but is also a really well-renowned speaker, having worked the circuit for TEDx and other keynote speeches. Then on our panel, we have Gopika. I'm going to give away Gopika. Gopika is a content consultant at TC Global, and she'll be one of the people answering questions for you alongside our other panelists, including Rob Reeves from the University of Loughborough. So Rob is the regional manager for Loughborough University, extensive background working in the global ed arena, and he's perfectly suited to help you with all your questions throughout, alongside Corinne. And Corinne also is from the career services at Loughborough, so that's a perfect person to be picking her brains for all of your career related questions. We also have Bindu Chopra, who is an international relations consultant for TC Global, and she's well versed and well experienced in the region of global ed, particularly focusing on questions of visas and government relations is a priority there if you want any questions there. And then we have Ron McCluskey, who is a psychologist, but also a management consultant, coach, entrepreneur, and psychologist. Also one of 11 master action learning coaches in the world. He's got a very diverse background, and again will be one of our panelists. So they'll be talking with you throughout the day, and our key presenters will be Chirag and Professor Chris. I'll just start by giving you a quick background of who we are at TC Global. We can just see that next slide. So at TC Global, we are a leading global ed learning and investment services organization. You probably knew us formerly as the Chopras, and we're now called TC Global. Our mission and our purpose is to build a global mobility and learning community of students, people, industry, and partnerships like this great panel showcases you to really help shape the global citizens of tomorrow today. We were founded in 1995, led by really passionate founders that saw the need to inject global development and future planning into the socio-economic conversational frame of the Indian education landscape, but also wider field. Today, we've engaged with over 2.5 million students, helped shape thousands of lives, and are now creating a next generation platform ecosystem that will really transition us into a platform brand, which is built for the generation of that was born in the age of the internet, which is probably most of you on this call today. We're continuing to build, adapt and advance our mission, particularly and even more as we see this new world that we're living in take shape. And we really look forward to having a great dialogue with you today. So I'll stop talking now and I'll hand over to Chirag to kick off our session.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you so much for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today evening. I hope you had a pleasant day. We do hope that you are able to gather insights and drive meaning from the next 60 minutes we'll be talking to you. So what will we be talking about today? We will briefly talk about the impact on the Indian economy and the impact on the various industries. Briefly, because I think most of the people would have read a fair bit in the media reports and the news articles about this. The core part of the webinar would be around careers for the future. What we believe are some sectors, some aspects which may actually stand to benefit from the COVID-19 pandemic, and the skills of the future. So before I get into those details, just like to understand the audience slightly better. So if you could just help me understand, are you a current student? Are you looking for global education? Are you an applicant? So it will just help us understand the, so if you could just take a minute or a couple of seconds to answer your, okay.
For the audiences that joined late, just select the choice that suits you best that you see on the screen so that Chirag will get an idea. Thank you.
So we seem to have an almost an equal mix of considering global ed and offer holder, yeah, I think the bulk of the audience today is between an applicant, an offer holder, and considering global ed. That's a very nice audience to have, because this probably topic is the most relevant for you as you when you pass out. How will the job opportunities and career opportunities look like? So let's talk about the impact on the Indian economy. The growth rates which we have seen historically, 5, 6, 7, 8%, are not likely to be seen for some time to come at least. For 2020, the most consensus estimates are really around a growth rate of 1.5 to 2%, which actually is good news, because most of the global economy is expected to have a negative or a shrinkage, where they might actually reduce in GDP and not grow. So even a marginal growth rate is actually not too bad. Of course, there will be some economies which will be impacted more severely than the others. So it will be a very heterogeneous impact across the globe. But it's not all gloom and doom. Most economists across the globe are anticipating a V-shaped recovery in 2021. Now, a V-shaped recovery, as the shape suggests, is where the recovery or the acceleration from the depth is almost as fast as the slide down. This factor is actually something which is very relevant for anybody who's considering global ed or is looking to enter global ed this year. If these economists, and these are very prominent economists, so I have no reason to doubt them, if these economists are correct, then by the time you pass out in 2022, 2023, we actually may be seeing a fair bit of growth trajectory of recovery, and not what we are seeing today. In terms of industries which will get impacted by the pandemic, of course, there will be a very heterogeneous impact of those industries. Some industries like aviation and tourism, I think everybody's heard about that, will be impacted very severely. And on the other side of the spectrum, we will have industries like pharma and healthcare, telecom, where it actually might be marginally positive in the next 12 months. The impact on different industries would really depend upon whether it is a discretionary spend for the consumer or is it an essential spend for the consumer. Any industry which operates on the essential side of the spectrum is likely to have a less severe impact compared to the industries or companies which are operating on the discretionary side. Auto manufacturing, consumer discretionary, electronics, these are the industries which are likely to have more severe impact in the next 12 months because most consumers would like to safeguard their or manage the expenditure to deal with the uncertainty. So let's getting into the first part of the two core things which we're going to talk about, the careers of the future and the skills for the future. Before we get into the careers of the future, would just like to hear a little more on how do you base your career decisions? How do you come up with what careers you want to pursue? So there would be a poll running. If you could help me with the way you would run your choices. So do you look at current job opportunities available in the market? What is hot today? Do you look at your qualifications? Do you look at what trends would drive jobs in the future? Or something which your friends and family suggest in terms of what is good for you? You look at current job opportunities, your educational qualification and what drives employability through that, and the key trends that drive jobs of the future. Okay, almost half the people have voted. So let's just, we are getting there, or just give it maybe a couple of seconds more. Almost 2/3 have voted. Okay. Okay, so it's heartening to see that almost 40% of people are looking at key trends of the future. For the people who are looking, considering only current job opportunities, my only suggestion would be that do look at the future. Even if the pandemic was not to be there, the job market, the careers really change every 24 to 36 months, right? At least the trends definitely change. And if you're able to identify the trends of the future and able to spot them and see what is going to drive employability and careers in the future, you are far likely to be more employable and have a better career compared to looking at only current job opportunities. For people who are looking at careers based only on your qualifications, again, while your qualifications are an important factor, but in today's day and age, there is always incremental skills and learnings which you can acquire to mold your careers in a way which are amiable to the future trends. There are multiple examples, if you look around you, of companies and people who have been able to reap substantial benefits if they've been able to identify the key trends. Prime example, Netflix. I think all of us are binge watching on Netflix these days. Company started off as a video rental company, was in competition with Blockbuster, spotted opportunities in digital entertainment, moved away from the core business and into a trend which it saw was a mega trend for the future. Blockbuster does not exist. Netflix is one of the most valued companies in the world, one of the top few. So we're going to talk about 4 key trends or 4 mega trends which will impact the careers or employability of future. Connectivity and convergence. The world is becoming a smaller space as far as the connectivity goes. People are connecting more. Internet is penetrating spaces which have not been seen before. I don't know if anybody read today morning, the rural internet base of India has overtaken the urban internet base of India as of today, right? Which is a very substantial change in the demographic penetration of internet. Health and wellness, moot point today with the pandemic. Sustainability. We've been talking about sustainability for many years. It's quite important, relevant. I think the importance of livelihood and importance of humanity has come to even fore with the pandemic, and sustainability is something which will continue to be an important driver for many years to come. And last is artificial intelligence, which probably is impacting all of our lives in many shapes and forms. So let's just dive in a little bit into connectivity and convergence. Over 90% of world's data was generated in 2019. We are generating terabytes of data every second, be it Twitter, Facebook, and all the other social media platforms, banking, telecom. We're generating data like never before. Yet, only about 1% of the data has been utilized for generating meaningful insights. 5G, I'm sure most of you would have heard about the 5G. 5G would replace as the dominant cellular technology across the globe by 23-24, replacing 4G. With 5G comes multiple benefits, not only of higher speed, but almost 40 times higher network utilization and infrastructure utilization. Cyber attacks, I'm sure everybody has seen some phishing emails. We read about identity thefts. Somebody lost 2 lakh rupees by calling a fake line of a food delivery company. So cyber attacks would be one of the biggest risks the world will be facing by 2030. And is already listed as one of the top 10 global risks by global CEOs. So what opportunities does this provide to us? One is around cybersecurity. Blockchain, risk management, privacy management, all of these aspects are something which will drive careers in some shape and form going forward. Even the simplest of things will require an element of cybersecurity to be built in. Anything which has got digital footprint. Internet of Things is something which we've been hearing from some time now. The focus or the push on robotic assistance, autonomous vehicles, connected and intelligent homes will be furthered with this pandemic because people have now tasted the fact that they can operate from home in most cases, right? And at least for the service industries, lots of people have been able to come into a remote working environment, and hence a push on Internet of Things is likely to happen. Data analytics, not from perspective of artificial intelligence, but general data analytics, big data, fraud detection, fraud management will be an important area. And robotics. The shutdowns across the globe have seen assembly lines coming to a screeching halt almost globally. Learning from this, many companies would enhance the use of robotics in their assembly lines to ensure or at least reduce the impact of any such event were it to happen again. Moving on to health and wellness. The risk which the pandemic poses to health and wellness globally is, of course, well known and doesn't need to be talked about. However, even when the pandemic is managed and brought under control, the reality is that non-communicable and lifestyle diseases will be the key driver of mortality across the globe, be it hypertension, diabetes, obesity, depression. These are claiming more lives than the more scary diseases which we know of. The global digital health market is expected to touch almost $500 billion by 2025. So what opportunities does that present to us? First would be around remote patient monitoring. The Apple Watch already can take an ECG. Samsung is coming out with a similar device. There will be more and more devices which will enable the monitoring of patients remotely, especially those who are chronic. With that will also come the concept of virtual reality consultations or remote consultations. One of the key reasons for us to visit a doctor today is the fact that they need to measure our vital statistics and, of course, the feel-good factor of seeing somebody. However, with the wearable devices monitoring most of the vital statistics which the doctors will require, the virtual consultations will become a very prominent way of seeking medical assistance. With that will also be a monitoring of lifestyle. Again, how many steps have you taken and so on and so forth, which a lot of health devices do today, but it will just get deeper and deeper and more insightful for the patients. The world as a whole has underinvested in healthcare R&D. I think that's something which we are getting to see today. While there's been a lot of private investment which has gone into healthcare R&D, public investment or governments investing in healthcare R&D has been much lower than what it should have been. Hopefully, most governments would change that stand and invest a whole lot more in healthcare R&D. We believe that healthcare R&D would see investments which it has never historically seen. The opportunities that healthcare R&D would present would be around precision medicines, which is making medicines for a very small segment or a niche segment of people, genomic technologies, of course, crisis management and pandemic management like what we are seeing today, so that something like this does not occur again, and on nutraceuticals to manage the non-communicable and lifestyle diseases. The third opportunity which will be presented would be on clinical decision support systems. This is really about making our doctors and our medical practitioners more equipped and more empowered to make better decisions and make a better diagnosis and prognosis. From AI-based diagnostics, which is already being undertaken by a lot of companies, to robotic diagnostics and predictive analytics on the prognosis for the disease. Sustainability, I think no need to talk about what sustainability is. We are dumping 90% of our waste. Solid waste management is probably one of the biggest crises which humanity is dealing with outside of the pandemic. The circular economy, which is essentially waste to wealth, has a potential of unlocking a $4.5 trillion into the global economy if that was to be implemented properly. And the decarbonization, of course, will continue to be an area of focus with the rising temperatures and rising sea levels. So the opportunities that would present sustainability would be around design thinking. Design thinking is around product lifecycle management, on how do we manage the life cycle of the product which we procure. Packaging design, since packaging is one of the biggest contributors to waste, how can we use biodegradable and renewable materials into the packaging? And product design to ensure end of life cycle management. Alternative energy has its ups and downs, started off as a big boom, saw its slump. But again, alternative energy, we believe, will continue to see investments and career options for a sustainable future. And then will be on waste management. Waste management is not only how to manage the current waste, but also a lot of related lines like logistics, waste logistics. How do we actually get the right waste to the right management center? Looking at sustainable materials, looking at reuse technologies, and a whole gamut of aspects which are around waste management. Last but not the least is artificial intelligence, which is the mother of all megatrends. Why do I call it the mother of all megatrends? It's simply because it is probably impacting almost all dimensions of our lives. How we buy, what we see, what we eat, what is grown, what is sold. Everything is being impacted by analytics and hence artificial intelligence in some shape and form. Artificial intelligence has got a wide array of aspects to it, from machine learning to big data to AI to predictive to prescriptive. I'll not get into those details today, but the fact of the matter is that to be an employee of the future or to have a career in the future, some working understanding of artificial intelligence will almost become the norm. We don't expect everybody to be an expert in AI, but yes, a working understanding, a brief understanding of the capabilities and potential of AI would be a hygiene factor. At this point, before I get introduce the skills of the future, and then Professor Chris will, of course, provide his insights on those skills, I'd like to bring about the element of the two economies which have emerged in the past few years. One is what is called popularly as the gig economy. The gig economy is where the platform, like a Uber or a Zomato or a Airbnb, is the differentiator, and the skills or the talent is commoditized. On the other hand, we have the talent economy, where the platform is an enabler, but the skills or the talent is the differentiator. This crisis has exposed certain fault lines in the gig economy, leaving the people who work in the gig economy far more vulnerable than people who work in the talent economy. So what is the learning we get out of that? The learning we get out of that is the fact that it is, even if you're in the gig economy or a certain deep branch of knowledge or understanding or skill is almost essential for somebody to be valuable to an organization. And mark my words, that the war for talent is not over. The war for quality talent is still on. It's just that it will move from a physical environment to a remote first environment. So before we get into the skills, just let's evaluate certain ways how the working or employment will change in future. If there's anybody who believes that this pandemic is a 8, 10, 20, 15-week scenario, and after that things will go back to the way they were, I would respectfully disagree with you. Lots of service companies and even manufacturing companies, to the extent they can, will move to a remote first model, right? The The need for people physically being in a space to work has been fundamentally challenged and will continue to be challenged in the foreseeable future. From niche expertise of having only one branch of knowledge, which will continue to be important, people will be required to have almost a T-shaped learning, where they have a deep understanding and knowledge about one aspect which they specialize in, but have a wider range of skills and knowledge on top, which are not as deep, but to adapt and be and solve a wider array of issues and problems. From employees, the companies will look at business partners, people who can display ownership, people who can understand the context, people who can display a lot more understanding of the business context than only somebody who is directed. And most importantly, companies will start looking for people who are self-managed, self-driven, rather than who are directed or instructed. Professor Chris will talk about some of these elements. So just winding up from my perspective, what are the skills which will remain you need to have remain relevant? I'm not talking about technical skills here because that would really depend upon the skill and the career which you would choose. But embracing change will be probably the most important skill which you need to have. The rate of change we've seen in the last 3 months has been faster than probably we've ever seen before. The world has completely been a different place in a short period of 3 months. People, companies, countries which have embraced this change, adapted and adopted, will survive, and not only survive, but will come out much stronger. People and companies which do not embrace this change do have the risk of obsolescence and may perish by the time we see the end of this crisis. So some of the skills which will be very important will be creative thinking, standard box thinking will no longer work. Emotional intelligence to deal with a wide array of issues, be it yourself, colleagues, family. While tech savviness would not be a challenge for our audience, which is young and looking for global ed, but yes, that would be a factor which employers and careers would be important. Your ability to communicate with many companies and many moving to a remote first environment, the advantage of physical cues which you used to have will no longer be there. So the ability to communicate will be very important. Having a growth mindset, becoming the best version of yourself, and having an active learning is something which will be very, very important. And Professor Chris will talk more about this. Cultural intelligence, ability to work with people from a wide range of cultures will be very important, especially in a connected economy, which we will have. From my perspective, this is one of the biggest values our global education brings to the table, where you engage with the people from diverse backgrounds and diverse cultures, and you are able to significantly develop on your cultural intelligence. And finally, leadership, taking people to a common goal. With that, I would like to invite Professor Chris to talk about his perspectives on skills for the future.
Thank you, Chirag. We're just getting the professor to share his screen. Professor, if you'd like to start from now. Professor, you're on mute. We can see your screen, Professor.
Yes, just hang on a minute. Yes. I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Perfect, right. So here it goes. Screen on?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you, Chirag, for that lovely foundation in terms of what to expect in a post-COVID era. What I like mostly about Chirag's presentation is the authenticity of hope and belief that it's not all gone. If you equip yourself, you're ready for a post-pandemic range and world of opportunities. To continue, what I have to share with you, I represent SP Jain School of Global Management. Of course, I'm not going to speak much about that. It's an Australian business school approved by TEXA with global campuses in Dubai, Singapore, Sydney, and Mumbai, of course. And it's ranked among the top in the world by some of the leading ranking bodies like Forbes, Economists, Times Higher Education, Wall Street Journal. And we are one of the pioneers in the world's multi-city undergraduate and postgraduate programs. That's our forte, and that's what has kept us in good stead all these years. So these are some of the rankings, as you can see there. Just to give a context to these rankings, the world has more than 14,500 business schools which are accredited across the world. So being among the top 10, 20, top 100 really means a lot in terms of who we are and what we can do. Our global campuses, as I said, the first one started in Dubai, which is what I head. I'm based out of Dubai. The second campus, based on the behest of the invitation of the Singapore government, we set up the Singapore campus. Then 2012, Sydney happened. And 2015, we came full cycle to set up 2 international campuses in Mumbai. As far as programs go, we run the world's multi-city undergraduate programs, bachelor's in business, bachelor's in business communication, bachelor's in economics, and to vibe with what Chirag just said, a bachelor's in data science, because there's a huge opportunity lying in the tech business sphere. We also run award-winning ranked master's programs, the Master's in Global Business and the Global MBA program, both full-time programs, multi-city. Our executive program, which is specific city-based, but again can be multi-city, again is one of those award-winning top 100 programs. And more recently, we have launched the Doctorate in Business Administration. All these programs are Australian accredited and have global recognition and global career progress. But I have something even more important to share with you this evening. That picture depicts it all. That black guy going is probably you, me, the countries, the corporations across the world. The invisible enemy is the one that's chasing us, and behind are a million questions that need to be answered. Questions in terms of our careers, questions in terms of opportunities, questions in terms of where we are, what are we going to do, and how is this going to impact all our lives and our futures. The good point is that Chirag gave us a roadmap in terms of what to expect and what is in store for us. And it's like going for a battle. If you're prepared for the battle, the probability of winning the battle, overcoming the challenges and odds would be much higher than when you're totally unprepared. And I think the human ingenuity, powered with human spirit and human positivity, can certainly help us not be tide over the crisis, but also move on to become remarkable people. I do have a couple of polls. So poll number 1 is about your impressions on what you think about the post-COVID economic recovery. Do you think it's going to be between 1 and 3 months? Is it going to be in the near future, 3 to 6 months? Later, 6 months to a year, or very later? You can choose any one particular dot, and we will then review those results. Thinking about it is also a dimension of our own perspectives about what to expect in the future. You could be a irrationally exuberant optimist, or you could be a doomsday prophet. I mean, the range could be anywhere between this to this. But interestingly, you could have a perspective which is all yours. So we'll now quickly look at the results. If you've all put in your answers. Yes, so the audience is pretty balanced. So a large percentage says it's going to be 6 months to a year, which is very practical, and very later, 1 year and above. So we have between the two, it's about more than 75% who believe it's going to be 6 months to a year, which I think is very practical, very realistic. It's not going to be. In fact, I was tempted to put one more, which says, never. But I believe, like all of you, I'm a diehard optimist, and I believe. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next part of the presentation. If the poll data can be removed from the screen, thank you very much. Yes. Okay, so that's where we are at the moment. And now moving forward, what does the whole idea of this have for us? It's challenging. We call this, there's a lovely term for it. It's called the VUCA world: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But within that, I think if you're equipped, if you're ready, prepared for the battle, you could certainly see that you're right there, ready when the opportunities galore, which is going to happen as soon as 6 months to a year. Now, the slide I'm going to show you is from the World Economic Forum, probably one of the most trusted, highly respected sources for understanding what's happening currently in our world and in the future. So 2016, they came back with these 10 skills, which they see and believe is going to be part and parcel of the fourth industrial revolution. And now they've linked it with the post-COVID era. And now link the various opportunities that were thrown open by Chirag's presentation, which was in wellness and health, which was in connectivity, which was in sustainability, all the different opportunities that you have. Now, those opportunities are emerging. And in order for you to become a skilled person in those areas, you need to have each one of these skills. From complex problem solving, which means when a challenge like this occurs, how does the brain react and how do you solve those difficult challenges? To critical thinking. So how do I look at data? He spoke about data. Just 1% of all the data that we have is actually being utilized for decisions, because of our inability to apply critical thinking models to ensure that we not only analyze the data, but we also apply it and see how it can have practical relevance. One of the key things he spoke again was about creativity, creativity which includes innovation, which includes design thinking. And the good thing is that, and I just want to touch upon here, all of these skills are very human skills. Okay, so you need to have these skills, what we call life skills, career skills, along with all the different knowledges. And I'll introduce you to soon to 6 intelligences. People management, whether you're managing them remotely, whether you're managing them from afar, you need to have the ability to manage diverse sets of people. And the more global you become, the more diverse you will have. I live in a city which is home to 206 nationalities from all across the world. So imagine working in a multicultural, multinational environment like this, where you have all kinds of cultural nuances, cultural differences, and you need to be able to appreciate those differences and work together as a team. The next one is, of course, coordinating with others, which is, again, the ability to collaborate, to cooperate, and the ability to get work done as members of different teams. Social and emotional intelligence, extremely critical in this current era. One, because it's two-dimensional, managing your own feelings and emotions, and not just that, but also managing the emotions of others. Again, will be a very, very critical survival and driving skill in this era of uncertainty. Judgment and decision making. Now, these are, again, very critical skills which you need, because when these challenges come in terms of unpredictable, uncertain confrontations that we will face, the challenges that we face, how do we make the right decisions? How do we make the right judgments would be another critical call of the hour. Service orientation, because when you have this interface between different people, a large portion of our work will require a high element of service orientation. Skills to negotiate and cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility is nothing but the ability to think from a very flexible, fungible, adaptable perspective. Now, here's the good news. These are very human skills, and the human brain is very much capable of training and practicing in each one of these skills. So that, I think, is the key insight for all of us, that in spite of all these challenges, the human brain is, number one, adaptable. Number two, thanks to the science of neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to change itself, each one of our, many manifests of the brain can actually be triggered to perform to peak performance, as long as we can practice and we diligently do it on a continuous basis. We should be able to do this. Now, in the last 2 weeks, during the mid of the COVID crisis, a bunch of senior economists and behavioral scientists looked into the critical intelligences that seem to really make the difference between people who are successful in the mid of a COVID crisis and the people who aren't. And they identified 6 critical intelligences. Let me go through each of them very quickly. Number one is contextual intelligence. We are all sitting inside our homes, locked up virtually, thanks to this invisible enemy. And we have, we have to work from home. And if you're a student, you have to study from home. And if you're a business person, you have to do business from home. Now, the context is the environment around us. How do you make sense of it? You get different kinds of information coming from the media. You get information coming on WhatsApp. You have your friends talking to you, your neighbors talking to you. So how do you make meaning of the context? Sense making, situational judgment, what will be our response, and how do we adapt to the context would be very, very critical. And as I said, the good news is we can develop these skills and intelligences. In a world that is virtually transparent, moral and ethical intelligence would be extremely important. Let me give you a very recent example of a very senior scientist who spoke about social distancing in United Kingdom and then broke the rule himself, and he had to shamelessly resign his position because of this disconnect between what he spoke and what he walked. So moral ethical intelligence would become extremely important because we become virtually transparent, and authenticity driven by a moral compass would make a huge difference. Our scriptures and our parents and our elders have been speaking about it. Be truthful, be honest, be authentic. I think the need of the hour is now digitally tested, and I think there's no better time to practice this particular skill. Social and emotional intelligence, as I said, the ability to empathize with others, the ability to be aware of our own feelings and limitations, the ability to manage our feelings and emotions, and the motivation to get things done with and through others. And of course, the relationship skills or social skills will also be very, very critical. There's no, let's not undermine the importance of these skills. It might sound like feel-good mumbo jumbo, but the reality is that these are time-tested, scientifically validated skills. So the more you enhance your capabilities on these skills, along with those technical knowledge that he spoke about, would be extremely important. Generative intelligence is nothing but, again, the intelligence to generate ideas. So with design thinking and creative thinking and innovation, how best can you generate ideas? This morning, I was part of an innovation think tank where we worked on ideas for the local government body, which is the Roads and Transports Authority. And believe me, it was not about mobility, because they already know how to run their buses, how to run their helicopters, their taxis, their water taxis, so on and so forth. But we were discussing stuff in terms of how do you use this for something else? And some of the ideas that came out are so profound, which is the power of generative intelligence. They spoke about mobile cafes, using the public transports as mobile cafes, using them as mobile pharmacies, using them as ambulances, using them for firefighting, so on and so forth. So that's the power of creative generative intelligence, which again, it's a God-given trait that all of us have. So it's high time we start practicing it. Technology intelligence is that tech savviness, the digital, appreciation and the digital application of various technologies. To give you a simple example, SP Jain, we are a business school, highly ranked, but we also embed a lot of technology into our program. So for example, our bachelor's and our master's and our doctorate programs in finance will have blockchain and fintech as part of the curriculum. Our marketing programs would have digital marketing and social media marketing and marketing analytics as part of the program. Our supply chain and logistics programs would have Internet of Things and Internet of Everything and big data, which are plugged into the program. So technology would become a critical interface in whatever discipline you take, whether it's psychology, whether it's humanities, whether it's tech-related subjects or business and economics. Technology would be another very, very critical intelligence. And last but not the least, the decisions, the judgments that we take now will have a transformative effect on everything that we do in the future. So whatever decisions we do as individuals, as communities, as corporations, and as countries would have a tremendous impact on our futures. So here is a very simple equation that is going to help each one of us. Everything starts with our thoughts. Today, you might be sitting inside your homes, worried, concerned, anxious, with fear. Now, the neuroscience of habits teaches us that everything begins with our thoughts. Our thoughts become our words, so we have to be very careful what our thoughts are. Our words become our actions, so we have to be very careful how these actions translate into habits. And these habits become our character, and our character finally becomes our destiny. So we have to be extremely conscious and careful about what we think. So that's critical. There's plenty of neuroscientific evidence that our thoughts actually change our brain structure. So if you think positive, if you think with faith, if you think with belief, and if you think with positivity, trust me, it can have a tremendous impact on our futures. Now we move on to the second of my polls. We spoke about number of skills, both myself and Chirag. And if I have to ask you a question, what are the skills which you think would be the most important to overcome in the current crisis? We have 5 options, and I'd quickly like you to go through and choose which one would be the most appropriate. Can we have the poll on the screen? Yeah. The answer to this is going to be pretty interesting. So it's kind of, and I'd say it's a trick question, if I may say so. But let me see how you guys have answered. And we'll have the results now in a few seconds. Could we have the results on screen, please? Lovely. Okay. A large percentage got the right answer. It has, as I said, it's a trick question. It's all of the above. You need each one of these skills because that's what we've been validating in our presentations. Thank you very much. We can move on to the presentation. So great. So you need to be equipped and you need to be ready for each of these skills. I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes sharing some philosophic thoughts to get you prepared, for this wonderful, exciting challenge ahead. Number one is for you to reflect. You can take 2 positions. You can be that, naysayer, diehard, agnostic, cynic, complaining and groaning about the current crisis, or you can reflect and say, hey, what is the big lesson that I can learn from this? I mean, I, for one, have learned a number of, very, very interesting insights from this whole experience. Number one, I can work from home. Number 2, I have amazing people at home whom I never, we took for granted. So there's a lot of opportunities to reflect. You can practice meditation. You can practice mindfulness. You can practice prayer. And now each of these things are neuroscientifically validated. So it's a time to awaken our innate wisdom to see what are the exciting things that we can do and what are the opportunities this throws us, and that will give us good ideas. It's also a moment to take rest. Respite is nothing but taking time out. So each one of us, in the humdrum of busy schedules with social media and learning and jobs and whatnot, I think it's time to give ourselves a little bit of rest, physical, mental, emotional, and that again has a tremendous impact on our growth. It's also a time for us to rethink our priorities, rethink the new normal, rethink the new opportunities, rethink the new challenges. And the sciences, of course, you have our brains which have the ability to actually rethink. It's called neuroplasticity. You can Google this. There's plenty of evidence about how we can practice and actually change our thought processes that can help us to reimagine our lives. So once we have done the mode of reflection and we have done, taken a little bit of rest and also started rethinking, applying brain science, it's time for us to reset, which means we readjust our priorities. It's not going to be the same prior to, say, COVID. So 2019, we might have had a certain, let's say, laid back, easy attitude towards life, but it's not going to be that. It's going to be different. It's not going to be, let's say, impossible, but it's going to be different, and we need to be prepared for it. So time to reset. And here's another powerful human dimension: the power to bounce back. Resilience is nothing but the innate human ability, God given in each one of us, to bounce back after a setback. So after COVID-19, we would definitely not be the same way we were prior to COVID, but we will come back more resilient, stronger, and with the flexibility in our planning, ability to withstand shocks like this. This is a once in a lifetime moment that's hit us all. The ability to adapt to change, which is what we're seeing now, pursuing our goals with a real focus, anticipating risks, which again was covered by Chirag, and understanding how to protect our weak spots. Now, here's the good news, scientifically validated, that post-traumatic growth can be even more exciting than our situation of well-being. That's where we were when we started. COVID has brought us to a highly negative, depression point, but the movement of, ahead, post-trauma growth could be much higher than where we were. So resolve is the ability to resolve and take a decision now, decision to move towards what we want to do in our careers. And of course, reimagine our futures, a future which is going to be challenging, but exciting with new kinds of opportunities and new kinds of skill sets that each one of you would have. So time to refresh, restart, revise, and rethink our priorities. And of course, relaunch our futures with a new target into a new, brilliant, infinite space, which is ready and waiting for you. And I'll end this with this beautiful video, which captures the essence of the current context. Can you hear it?
No, sir, you'll have to share your audio with us as well.
Just hang on a minute.
While we sort out the audio on the professor's presentation, thank you so much, guys, for all your questions. We are answering them. Our panelists are trying to respond to them. There are so many questions coming in. Just after we play the video, we will get into the Q&A where we will address all the questions that you have asked us as best we can.
Computer audio.
We will be sending you, emails with answers to your questions. Give us a few moments. Sorry, Professor.
Computer audio? I'm on computer audio, right?
Well, we can hear you. We just can't.
No.
Can you play it again?
Yeah. It's not hearing still? Okay,
No,
let me just wait a minute.
Since we've got a few questions coming in, so shall we?
Yeah, probably we can.
If that's okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Professor. That was very, very insightful. We have a lot of questions that have come in, during your session as well. Chirag, I'm just going to go back to you for your screen. Okay, so we'll just quickly move on to, we know that a lot of you have asked questions. Presenters, would you like to come on screen so that we can start the question and answer round? Hi, Rob.
Yeah, I think I've got the sound. So we do it as a last, finale. We'll have the video played after the Q&A.
We'll do it post the Q&A, sir. Yeah.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah. Kalpana, Corin, can we have you guys on as well? Ron? Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of questions that have come in. I try to bucket them as best I can. Jas is going to help me out here. But one of the big ones that have come in is, given that borders are under lockdown, how will it really affect? Chirag, in fact, you only covered the careers that are from the sciences and computing. There are a lot of questions about humanities, psychology that have come in. So they're all wondering how it will affect them as well. Would you like to shed some light on that? For Bindu and Ron can also help us out with that one.
Sure. I think one thing which I should have said is the careers which I've highlighted, it's not that the other there'll be no other careers which will not blossom, right? These are the ones which are somewhat are come at the top of the mind. However, humanities will always continue to be an important aspect.
Chirag, you're a bit unclear. Do you want to just stop the presentation for now?
Hello, can you hear me?
Chirag, can you stop the presentation for now so that everybody can hear you?
Sure.
Thank you.
So humanities will continue to be an important aspect of education, irrespective of. So while I have demonstrated a lot of things in the sciences or analytics space, but humanities, there will always be an overlap between humanities and sciences, even in the areas I've talked about. So humanities will continue to be an area of focus.
Ron, would you like to add to that? We can't hear you, Ron. Okay, while we wait for Ron to sort out his
Sorry, folks. It looks like
audio.
I understand Professor Chris has a perspective on this. I think good to hear his perspective on it.
Can you hear me, guys?
Professor? Yes, we can, sir.
All right. You see, the world is moving towards cross-functional understanding. So that, I think, is the most important learning for us, that the humanities would have elements of technology and technical courses would have large doses of humanity. We are talking about a combination. Stanford has a lovely term for it. It's called the era of the techie and the fuzzy. The techie being the tech skills and the fuzzy being the humanities. And Daniel Pink, another amazing author, talks about it as a whole brain thinkers. So 21st century is all about whole brain thinking. So the left brainers who are technically skilled and the right brainers who are humanistically or creatively skilled. As I told you in my presentation, you can have a combination of both. So I think the era, the current post-COVID era, will require more and more of this cross-functional skills. So definitely the technical skills that Chirag spoke about, along with the human skills that I introduced based on the framework given by World Economic Forum. That's where the world is moving. So it's the era of the techie and the fuzzy. That will be easy for our participants to understand. So you need to be a techie and you also need to have fuzzy elements which can combine to make you a great professional.
Thank you, Professor. Would anyone else on the panel like to add to that? Okay. Corinne, if I can ask you the next question. How difficult is it going to be for an international student to get jobs in the UK post COVID-19? And will the visa will our PSWs be affected? That's the other big one that has been coming through.
The real answer is we don't really know, although I was really pleased to see the presentation gave some insights into the short-term nature of this. So we think it could be a V-shaped dip, meaning it's gone down quickly. So if you look at the number of jobs that have been advertised recently, that's gone down sharply, but we expect it could rise sharply as well. So it could be a quick recovery. We also know, as was said in the presentation as well, that certain industries will be more affected than others. So I know there was a question about travel. I think that is an industry that we know is going to be affected quite a bit at the moment, and it might be wise to look at people's behaviors in relationship to their confidence to travel and how likely it is that they're going to want to get back into that boat and start traveling, and then what kind of careers might come out of that. So reacting to the job opportunities that might be out there because of this. But overall, in looking at the UK labour market in terms of graduate recruiters, a lot of them are saying they're delaying their decisions, but they're not looking to recruit significantly less. So the number that they're predicting at the moment, there's been some very recent research done on the number of recruitments that they're looking at. Some of them are saying around 10%, and that depends on whether they're looking at placements or graduate recruitment. And also it depends on which industry. But this is not a drastic recession. It's not looking like that. It's not looking like people are approaching it that way. So it's difficult to say. I wish I could give you a really definite answer. What I would say is any students who are looking at study in the UK, look for programs and universities that seem to have really good links to industry. So for example, at Loughborough, all of our students have the opportunity to do a placement. That means that students get really good links to industry, but it also means that the university has excellent information about the labour market and really good relationships with employers. So look for those programs that will give you the chance to get some kind of applied project work or a placement or an industrial placement of any kind. That will really help you. And the second thing I would say is, the minute you get there, or even before, because many of us are trying to engage with students before they come, get involved with your career service, because they are there trying to help you. They really want you to succeed. And they have all of the support that you need. You don't need to look anywhere else. Everything you need will be within that career service and in your program. But I'll leave Rob to answer the question about the visas, because he's more involved in that side of things, and I wouldn't want to say the wrong thing.
Thank you, Corinne. Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Corinne. I think it's really useful that my colleague Corinne is here, because she's actually in the careers team, and she's more than ever now, I think, going to be one of the members of staff who's going to be kind of inundated in students needing that support and clarity. So I think one thing to mention, wherever you study, wherever you go in your journey, in your next career, make sure your university is offering that support to you, because a number of Indian students in the past have not actually gone out of their way and used the services, and then later on complain that there aren't jobs and opportunities. So you will always have that support, and it is there for you. You just need to go and use it. So in terms of the new visa regulations, you've probably read that the new UK government's graduate visa route, commonly known as post-study work, will be introduced next year to graduates, as long as you graduate in the summer. Now, the government has not given any update to this, but nor have they changed their mind on this. So what I'd advise you all to do is keep looking at universities' pages. They will give updates on any key developments, any, for example, fees that may be applicable to an extension of a visa, because from our understanding, it's not an automatic visa. As long as you graduate, where you also have to get proof that you have graduated from your university, either from a master's, bachelor's, or a PhD program, then you will be able to apply, usually from the UK, to extend your visa for an additional 2 years initially. So that is a very attractive proposition. It's not going anywhere from our understanding. It's not something the UK have had for a number of years. I might be showing my age, I suppose, here, but I was coming to India when the post-study work was here originally, and it had a fundamental effect on the attractiveness of the UK. So, and we had some fantastic Indian students still in the UK working from that initial period. So it is a really good time to come to the UK, despite the COVID-19 implications, and we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't completely predict what it's going to be like. But I think the post-study work is certainly a very good measure that's been put into place, which should give you realistic opportunities in the UK, should you put the effort in, use our careers services wherever you're studying in the UK, perhaps get some work experience, look at part-time jobs, look at anything you can be doing even now in the home before you return to your studies or return to work, anything that you can be doing extra that will add value to you and will make you more attractive to an employer.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you so much, Rob. Really, I'll ask the next question.
Yeah,
So
sure, go for it.
this is a question for all of the panelists. So whoever feels like jumping in, please go ahead, but just be patient with each other because we can't hear all of you at once. I'll start with perhaps if we can take Gopika first on this question. What are the top 3 trends, very succinctly, please, top 3 trends that you're predicting post-COVID-19, and at least one of them referring to management opportunities post the pandemic?
So I think the first, I think this was spoken about before, but the first trend is, remote work. Companies are moving, their employees or their teams are not going to be working out of the offices anymore. So remote work is the biggest trend that we'll actually see. And in terms of managing that, communication skills are going to be very, very important in terms of, working from home. I think that was spoken about earlier as well. So I think that's definitely going to be very important. The care economy we will definitely see going up, because that trend will is already rising. So anything in terms of in that health and care field will go up. The third thing that I feel that is that the digital economy definitely will go up as well. So all the jobs that require you to have digital skills, whether it's design, whether it's database management, whatever you can do from home, so those will definitely see a huge spike, and that's something that we're actually seeing already.
Jas, if I could just add to that.
Sure, go ahead, Bindu.
Yeah, other than healthcare, we've got a lot of questions on healthcare. Yes, fabulous courses. And of course, technology. That's here to stay. That's not going away. But, a lot of people are very worried about the business side of things. I would say data analytics, if you look at it as technology, that's fair. Otherwise, supply chain, logistics, e-commerce is going to be big time. In marketing, digital marketing, rather than any other form. Those are the kind of courses that will also be, will be very, very much in demand at this point of time.
I just want to add one thing. You see, business will not die. Business models will evolve. So what these students need to know is that business as usual is dead or it's dying. So they need to understand new business models, which embed new kinds of remote working, new kinds of management, new kinds of models. So as I was saying, supply chain would now have a lot of technology, Internet of Everything, big data, blockchain, so on and so forth. Finance and banking services will have fintech and blockchain, which will be embedded within. Marketing will have, again, big data, marketing analytics, social media marketing, neuromarketing, so on and so forth. So I think it will be a blend. Business is not going to die. Business models will evolve, and that's where they need to look at progressive institutions, and that can give us futuristic business courses which embed a lot of technology. That would be my way of looking at it. Business is not going to die. It'll have new forms.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think that was really, really useful insights. One question from Rohini, and then I think we've just got one after that. So Rohini.
Vinam, I think you can shed the most light on this one. There are a lot of questions about English language requirements from a visa and admission perspective. If you can shed some light on the visa side of things for Canada, UK, Australia, and all the other markets. And Rob, if you could help us with some of the insights from a university perspective, that would be really helpful for our audience.
All right, let me start with the rest of the world, including the UK actually. All visa offices at the moment are closed. Nothing is open. What we are hearing on the ground is that between 4 and 6 weeks, visa offices should start to open. All we can say at TC Global is that if you have applied and accepted your offer, paid your deposit, please start putting your paperwork together. Come to us, let us check it all out, and be ready, because when these offices open, there's going to be a deluge of applications across the world. There is no country which is open right now. So we just have to be a little more careful. I got some wonderful questions today which said, are visas approvals going to become easier because the countries need money? Oh, for God's sake, visas are not given based on a pandemic or what COVID-19 has done to us. Visas are given on documentation. So if your documentation is accurate, it's been verified, it's perfect, you will get a visa. And if you haven't done all that, I'm afraid it's not going to happen. PSW, not affected. All visas across the board. There have been no changes to the visa formalities anywhere. Rob?
So just in terms of English language, and I agree with everything you've said so far, Bindu. For the UK, no, that's okay. So just in terms of what the current state of play is, Obviously, IELTS centres, TOEFL centres, PTE, there are a lot of issues, whereas in India, we understand that they're not available yet. They will take some time, depending on the next lockdown announcement, to them to start opening up. What I would say is that UK universities are aware of the situation. They are developing their own measures within English language to assess students on listening, speaking, reading and writing. So, for example, at Loughborough, and this is just an example, other universities may vary, we do consider students who have got good levels of English through their standard 12. So whether that's State Board or CBSE, we will look at that. We are looking to make that a little bit more flexible, because we know a lot of students in India have studied English throughout their life at university level, perhaps further. There are a few new tests that are becoming into popularity across the UK as well. One, I'm not too sure of the pronunciation because I've been on paternity leave for 7 weeks, but I think it's something like Duolingo's coming in at a lot of
Duolingo,
UK
that's right, yeah.
There we go. I wasn't far off. And the second one, which I think perhaps may have more popularity in India, is a English language software testing system called Password, which should allow students to even take their test at home. So you don't even need to leave the house. So there are a number of new things that are coming in with COVID in mind, with everybody's lockdown and restrictions in mind, to make it as easy as we can for you to pass the English language formality. So whichever university you've looked at, keep looking at the English language provisions, speak to your TC Global counsellors and relationship managers, and any updates should be given through universities in the coming weeks.
I'll just
Thank
add
you,
to that.
Go ahead.
India, I'll just add to that. All of them are accepting, universities have become a little flexible. Duolingo, TOEFL, IBT, the IELTS indicator, the PT, the VPT, all of them can be done at home. Universities are accepting it. So don't stop your applications based on that. But be a little careful. Not all governments for visas are accepting it. At the moment, Ireland has accepted Duolingo for this intake only. It's not going to be across the board, okay? So don't think that you can go next year using that. What happens next year, we don't know. Canada, again, if you're doing a general application to a university, it doesn't matter, you can take Duolingo. But if you're going for a PG diploma to a college, just talk to us before you take it.
Thank you, Bindu. Okay, I think this is our last question. Maybe Rohini has one more. Ron, this one's for you. So there seems to be a lot of people that are, we can't hear you, Ron. Okay, we can't hear you. Okay, if Ron can't answer it, perhaps Professor Chris or Chirag. There seems to be a lot of people that are now reconsidering their path in terms of where they want to go with their career. What kind of guidance can they get in terms of how they should pick the right path for them? Chirag, if you can just kick off perhaps from a TC Global perspective, since poor Ron can't speak, and then Professor Chris, if you've got any insights.
There are two elements to this. One is what are you passionate about, and what do you really like to do, right? That is, of course, always been one of the key fundamental drivers of the career you choose, right? And the second element is really about the opportunities which will present themselves in the next 12 to 24 months as the students pass out from the respective courses, depending on, of course, 12 to 48 months, depending on what do they do. So on the first element, which is what is their fundamental passion and what drives them, TC Global can support them with a product which we have called CMAP Plus, which is Career Motivation Analysis Profile, where we can help the students undergo a rigorous psychometric testing and help them uncover, in some cases, their passions and what they would truly excel at. Ron, unfortunately, we can't hear him, but he's an expert at that. I could talk a lot more detail. But from a TC Global perspective, of course, we can support students through that. From a future perspective, as Professor Chris has already outlined the fact that business models are going to evolve, right? And depending upon the career you are choosing and you are into, do understand how the business models are likely to evolve in the next some time, and choose careers and accordingly. Professor?
Yes. Thank you. There are a couple of things, and I want to start with a very beautiful proverb, which is very relevant for all you, students who are looking for, life's choices. It's an ancient Chinese proverb that says, "Happiness is doing what you love to do and getting paid for it." I repeat that: happiness is doing what you love to do and getting paid for it. Because a lot of time we look at the second part, the getting paid part, and leave the passion part. So I think it's a combination of that, and once you get that, that's important. Now, to add to the career, assessment, which is very comprehensive, and you should certainly engage the services of professional agencies like Chopra's. There's one more, which is called the Values in Action. It's called VIA. That's been developed by the University of Pennsylvania. And what it does, it doesn't talk to you specifically about your careers, but it identifies what they call character strengths. There are a total of 20 character strengths, and once you do that, the test is free. It's called VIA assessment, so you can go online and do the test for yourself, and then you will see out of those 20, which are those key character strengths that I possess. And once you have that, you build your competencies around those tests and linking those opportunities which have been laid out for you. So that's the way you should plan that. That's how I would look at it.
Thank you so much.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Professor Chris.
Yeah, so the other thing which I normally tell students, because when we do these roadshows, there's the common question: how do I plan out? I tell them, go Google. So what do I mean by that? The first one, let's say, for example, you're looking into the fintech field. I'm just using fintech in context. Careers in fintech would be the first Google search. You'll find plenty of results in terms of what are the various career options available. The second Google search should be skills required for fintech. And then again, you get a whole list of skills. Then map that and say, do I have these skills? How can I get myself trained on these skills? And of course, you have to link it with saying, does this excite me? Once you see those skills, once you see those opportunities with that, excite me. And a combination of that, and then of course, you come to counselors like TC, you come to people like us, and you ask us, we'd be able to map that and say, okay, so this is what your competencies are. This is where your passion lies. These are your skill sets. You can certainly look at this. So I think it's not rocket science, but you need to put a little bit of effort. The wrong thing that many times we do from an Asian context, more specifically Indian, is that, okay, my uncle was a hotshot investment banker. He makes tons of money. I want to be an investment banker. That's a very wrong route to take. So you should be guided by your passion, as we rightly said. You should assess your interests and then look at it. The world is rife with opportunity. They'll be different. It's not that the world is closed for opportunity. They'll be different, but you need to look for what those new opportunities are and prepare yourself. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Rahini, I think you've got the last question.
Yeah, I have a question. There have been a lot of students actually that have joined us today who are very interested in Canada. Krishna, are you still here? Can I ask you our final question? If you can put on your mic, because today we've had a lot more technical difficulties, unfortunately. Krishna, are you there?
Okay, ask the questions. I'll see if I can answer it. Otherwise, she can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now
Thank you,
I'm
Bindu.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
she's
There
come.
she is. Okay. Krishna, the question that we're being asked is Canada still a viable option? Because we have a lot of students that who are offer holders who want to know whether they should be paying their deposits and about the English language. I know Bindu ma'am has covered the English language. If you can just give us a brief on deferment and what you think your advice to them would be.
Okay, got your question. This is Krishna from TC Global. And to answer your question about Canada, yes, it's a very viable option, I would say, because Canada is always, it has been and still would be very dependent on immigrants. So students who are going to Canada can expect to permanently settle there. So I'm sure there are a lot of students who would be interested in looking for jobs after they complete their program as well as settling down. So Canada, is a huge country. It's the second largest, in fact, in the world, with a population of only 30 to 33 million, which is just 2 Delhi populations. So you can well imagine that with a vast country and with its growing economy, so Canada needs a lot of people, whether it be healthcare workers, whether it's the IT, whether it's mining, manufacturing. So I think it's a very, very viable option, and students should be looking ahead and going to Canada. You could always pay your deposits because, most colleges and universities are being very flexible and they would be refunding, but please talk to your relationship managers before making a deposit, because you need to know the process of a refund. So in case, let's hope for the best that, September would be a face-to-face intake. But in case you don't, want to go in September and you want a refund or a deferral for the next intake, I would suggest that you should definitely talk to your relationship manager at TC Global. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna ma'am. Chirag, I'll hand it back to you. For those of you who have questions not been answered, please give us 2 days and we will write to you with all your answers. If you have questions, you can still write into us and we will reply to you as best we can and as soon as we can. Over to you, Chirag.
So I think there's nothing much, Rohini. It's just about the fact that do stay connected, and we will reach out to us in case we can help you with any queries.
Thank you, Chirag. Thank you, panelists, for taking out your time. Students, as I said, please write into us at webinar@tcglobal.com. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Some of you had a series of questions. If you have a relationship manager already, as we've mentioned, please connect with them or write into us and we will write back to you as soon as we can. Thank you for taking the time. Again, thank you, panelists. You have been amazing. Stay safe and speak soon.
Thank you very much. And good luck and God bless all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.